interact with me. I want you guys to ask questions if you have. And then if I ask you questions, I'm expecting you guys to answer as well. So I will tell you if you answer on the chat or if you should speak or voice out your answer, then I will unmute you. Now, before we continue, just indicate on the chat if you can hear me, grade sixes. Indicate on the chat if you can hear me. Okay, great stuff. All right. Thank you for those of you who actually did send me your work via email. I will give you feedback later on today. And those of you who have not, please do that so I can see whether you guys actually did understand or not. This is my email address again. Okay. Now, for today, since I said it's revision, after the end of this lesson, you need to be able to write an instructional text. Then, number two, you need to be able to identify and discuss and also use demonstrative, interrogative, and indefinite pronouns. And then, lastly, you need to be able to discuss the features of a story. Okay, so are we all good? May I proceed? Indicate on the chat. Nice one. Okay. So yesterday we were dealing with instructional texts. All right. And I told you what an instructional text is. I gave you the different types of instructional text, and also you guys were supposed to write your own recipe. And for those of you who were able to tell us your answer, you guys gave very good examples. And those of you who actually sent me your activity via email, those are nice recipes as well. So I just can't wait to try them. Okay, so on the chat, indicate if you know the answer, what an instructional text is. What did we say an instructional text is? Or what is the purpose of an instructional text? Okay, so I want to see the answers on the chat. Come on, grade sixes. What is an instructional text? We spoke about this yesterday. JD raised a hand. Okay. Okay, JD, please indicate on the chat. Write your answer on the chat. Okay, very good. So is an instructional text is a text which tells you how to do something or how to make something. Very good, grade sixes. Okay, so you guys do remember that. Now give me an example on the chat. Give me an example of an instructional text. We said, yes, it tells you what to do and it tells you how to do something or how to make something. Okay. Someone says a piece of information that gives you steps on how to do or make something. Very good. For example, a recipe. Okay. Any other example besides a recipe? Another example, a manual. Very good. And then one final example. Okay, directions to a place, how to fix something. So those are all examples of instructional text. Okay, thank you, grade sixes, for remembering. And then we said when you write an instructional text, you have to follow three rules. Okay, now who can remember what those three rules are? Okay, I'm going to unmute someone. So raise your hand if you remember. I'm going to unmute someone. Three people have raised their hand. Let's try Letoguhle.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Letoguhle. What are the 3 rules that we need to use when writing our instructional text?
You must make sure that you have the title.
Okay.
You must make sure that you have your utensils in the instructions.
Okay.
And then you must make sure that you must tell them what to do, all the instruction that you must do.
Okay, so Letoguhle, very good. Letoguhle has given us the format. So your first rule is your format, and your format needs to have your title or your heading, and it needs to have your ingredients, utensils, equipment, and it needs to have your method. So rule number 1 is format. What is rule number 2 that you need to follow? Okay, raise your hand and I will unmute. JD? Hello? Yes, JD? Okay, let's try someone else.
Up.
Hello? 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 Yes, Mashara.
Afternoon, ma'am.
How are you?
Fine, and you, ma'am.
I'm good, thank you. So, what is our second rule?
Ma'am, we must have the right language.
Very good. So, you need to use the right language. And then the final rule?
Add visuals.
Well done to you. Fantastic. So, those are the 3 rules for our instructional text. Number 1, you need to use the right format. Number 2, you need to use the correct language. And number 3, you need to add visuals. Okay, so in your format, we said you have your heading or your title. Why do we need the heading? Why is it important to have your heading? Why is it important to have your title? Okay, I'm going to unmute someone. So raise your hand. Yes, let's go. Yes.
Ma'am,
Yes, I can hear you.
ma'am, hello, ma'am,
Hello. Yes, I can
hello,
hear you.
ma'am.
I can hear you, let's go. Okay, it seems like let's go can't hear me. Anyone else? Why do you need the title? Okay, you can type on the chat. Why do we need a title in our recipe? Why is it important, or what is the purpose of a title? Anyone who wants to try? Okay, 2 people raised their hand. Let's see who else. Okay, so Shamalani said to know what we are doing and to attract our viewers or to attract our readers. So the purpose of the title, very good, Shamalani. The purpose of the title is to give viewers or your readers to let them know what you are actually making in the recipe. Okay, then number two, we said you need to know your method. You need to list your method, no, not your method, sorry. You need to list your ingredients as well as your equipment and your equipment or your materials or your utensils. Why do we need to list our ingredients? Why is it important in a recipe? Hopefully I can hear you this time, Little Guhle.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Then why it's important to list the ingredients so you can know what to put in the thing that you're making.
Exactly. So we need to list our ingredients and our materials or equipment so that our readers will know what they need in order to prepare that meal. Okay, great stuff. And our directions or method or steps. Why do we need those? What is the purpose of your method? Why should you include it? Okay, raise your hand. Raise your hand. Little Gutle is on fire today. Um, Hello?
Then
Yes.
it's important so you know what to do after. Isn't it? You must put your ingredients, and then after you
Yes.
put your ingredients, you must know what to do because maybe there's some things you must do before you do that thing.
Perfect. So, our method, the purpose of the method is to tell your readers what to do with the ingredients and what to do with your utensils, your equipment, or your materials. Okay. Do you understand so far, grade sixes? Indicate on the chat if you are still with me and if you can still hear me perfectly. Okay. Good. So basically, these are our three golden rules. Number one, it's your format, which needs to have your heading, your materials, equipment, or ingredients. Then lastly, you need to have your steps, your method, and instructions. Okay. Then number two, we said language. Okay. We said for your language, you need to use imperative verbs. Now, remember, grade sixes, we said imperative verbs are verbs that tell us what to do or verbs which tell us, which give us orders. And then your language needs to be precise. So you need to be straightforward and get straight to the point. Do not add any unnecessary information. And then it also needs to be easy to follow. So a reader should not be confused. And lastly, add your pictures. Why is it important to add your pictures? Raise your hand and I'll unmute you. For your recipe or for your instructional text, why is it important for you to raise your hand? Let's see. Hello? Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
How are you?
Hello. I'm fine, and how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I
So,
want to
why?
say,
Yes?
you must add pictures so your text or your text to look interesting.
Okay, well done. So we add our visuals to make our instructional recipe more interesting, to make it more attractive, to make it more appealing. So no one would want to read Well, if you have a dal or a plain recipe, no one is really going to be interested. But if you add visuals, then visuals actually make it more interesting, and you'll get more readers for your recipe. Okay, now on Thursday, okay, before I move on, we said examples of instructional texts include your recipe, your manual, and your step-by-step guide or your guidelines. Okay, are we fine with everything that we did yesterday? Do you guys understand? Can we now recap to yesterday's? When was it? Wednesday's work. Okay, does everyone understand? Okay, perfect. Now on Thursday, we were doing pronouns. Okay, now who can tell me on the chat? So type on the chat, what are pronouns? Before we get to the 3 types that we did, let's first, okay, if you're late, it's fine. So who can answer on the chat, what are pronouns? Okay. So Adele said used in the place of common nouns. Okay, very good. So pronouns are, okay, so pronouns are the words that we use to replace our nouns. So you can be replacing a common noun, or you can be replacing a proper noun. Okay, so any type of noun that you replace it with a pronoun. And on Thursday we looked at three pronouns. So raise your hands if you remember those pronouns, and I'll unmute you. What are the 3 pronouns that we discussed on Wednesday, sorry. I don't know why I keep on saying Thursday. What are the 3 pronouns? Okay, someone raised a hand. Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
How are you?
Fine, and you, ma'am?
I'm good, thank you. So what are the 3 pronouns that we discussed on Thursday?
Ma'am, we discussed domestic pronouns.
Okay, demonstrative.
Demonstrative.
Well done.
Interrogative pronouns.
Interrogative. Say it with me. Interrogative.
Interrogative.
Well done. And then the last one.
Indefinite.
Well done. Okay, great stuff. So those are the pronouns that we discussed, okay? We discussed demonstrative, we discussed indefinite, and we discussed the interrogative. Now, who can tell me what demonstrative pronouns are? Okay, raise your hand if you can tell me what demonstrative pronouns are and how many are they? And if you can just give me an example of a demonstrative pronoun. So raise your hand. Demonstrative. Okay, so indicate on the chat if you know, or if you know the answer, raise your hand. What are demonstrative pronouns? Let's try Talia, I think. Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm good, thank you. So what are demonstrative pronouns?
Demonstrative pronouns are pronouns that point to specific things.
Well done. So demonstrative pronouns are pronouns which point out or which identify certain people or objects. Okay. Now, Talia, how many demonstrative pronouns do we have?
4.
4. Very good. Well done to you. And then what are those 4 demonstrative pronouns? If you can just remember.
This,
This, well done. That,
those,
those,
these.
and these. Well done. So the 4 demonstrative pronouns that we have, grade 6s, are this, that, these, and those. Okay. And then we have interrogative pronouns. Who wants to try? Raise your hand if you would like to explain to us what interrogative pronouns are. I see those hands are being raised. Thank you, grade 6s. Let's see. Let's try Shamalani. Hello?
Ma'am,
Yes, how are you? Hello?
ma'am, interrogative pronouns is
Continue. Shamalani? Hello? Okay, I can't hear her. Would someone like to try? Let's go back to Mushara.
Afternoon, ma'am.
How are you?
Okay, ma'am. Integrative pronouns, which I use to ask questions.
Well done. So it's interrogative.
Integrative.
Yes, well done. So we use those pronouns to ask questions, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
How many are they? How many interrogative pronouns do we have?
Ma'am, we have 5.
We have 5, and can you list them, please?
5. Who, whom, whose, what, and which.
Well done. Does why qualify as an interrogative pronoun? Is why an interrogative pronoun? No, it is not, because only those 5 are interrogative pronouns. Okay. And then the last one is indefinite pronouns. So who would like to try that one? Who would like to give us a definition? Raise your hand. Raise your hand and okay, the last one, indefinite pronouns. What are they? And give me your examples. Come on, grade 6s. Okay, 3 people raise their hand. Let's see. Hello?
ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, them indefinite pronouns are when we don't want to be specific about what are we talking about.
Okay, well done. So indefinite pronouns, when we do not wish to be specific about a person, an object, or an amount. Can you give me an example of an indefinite pronoun?
I have few pencils but many razors.
Okay, so which of those words are indefinite pronouns in that sentence?
Few and many.
Well done. Great stuff, grade 6s. We are moving on. Okay, now let's see what we just spoke about. So it says pronouns are words that act as a noun in a sentence. And then we have the 3 that we discussed. We said demonstrative pronouns are pronouns that we use to identify people or objects. We have 4 of them. It's this, that, these, and those. Okay. Then we have interrogative pronouns. These are pronouns that we use to ask questions. Okay. I told you that when you think of interrogative pronouns, always think of an interrogation room. What happens in an interrogation room? They ask you questions, okay? So these are pronouns that we use to ask questions, and we have 5 of them, okay? It's who, whose, whom, which, and what. Those are the only 5 interrogative pronouns, grade 6s. So why is not an interrogative pronoun? How is not an interrogative pronoun? Or why is not an interrogative pronoun? Only those 5 which are listed here. Okay. Then lastly, we have indefinite pronouns. And these are the pronouns that we use when we do not wish to be specific about a person, an object, or an amount. Examples include someone, anywhere, much, enough, others, less, more, everyone, everything, everywhere. So the list goes on and on and on. Okay. Do you guys understand so far? Is it okay for me to move on to the things that we did on Tuesday? Indicates on the chat. Okay. Okay, is it okay for me to move on? Indicate on the chat. Okay, thank you. And so on Tuesday, we were basically doing reading strategies, and that's when I was glitching a lot. So for those of you who did not manage to hear what I was saying, please pay careful attention. So the lesson was basically on reading a story. And I said to you guys that every story consists of a title, an author, characters, plot, setting, and your message, moral, or purpose of the story. Okay? I said to you that your author is the person who writes the book or the person who wrote the book. And you usually find the name of the author on the front cover. Then you have your characters. I said the characters is who the story is about. So your characters can either be people or objects or animals. Okay, I even gave you an example of the 3 little pigs. So those 3 pigs are the characters. Okay, and most of the time I said your characters are non-fictional, which means they are not real. Okay, then you have your plot. I said your plot is made up of all the main events which happened in the story. So the most important things which happened in the story is your plot. Then your setting, I said when you are looking for setting, you look for a place and time. So you look for when the story happened and where it happened. And lastly, your message or the purpose of the story is what the story has taught you personally or what you have learned from the story. Okay? Do you guys understand? Indicate on the chat if you understand. Okay, perfect. Thank you, grade 6s. And then we said before reading a story, use the title and graphics. Remember, your graphics are your pictures, your visuals. Okay, we said you use your title and your graphics to predict what the story is about. Okay, so that's where you sort of guess, that's where you get to use your imagination to try and predict what the story is about. Okay, and then to show that you understand the story, you need to be able to summarize it using your own words. Okay, so don't repeat the words that were used in the story. Try using your own words to show that you have actually understood. I see the chat is flooding with messages. Okay. Okay, that's fine. And then when you read grade 6s, you need to be sure to always use your reading strategies. So your pre-reading. What do you think is the importance of pre-reading? Why do we need to do pre-reading? Pre-reading means before you actually read the story. Give me an example of a pre-reading activity. What happens before you read a story? I just mentioned it a few minutes ago. So you have a book in front of you. So before reading, what do you do? Indicate on the chat. Before actually reading the story, what do you do? When you see the title of the story and you see all those pictures, what do you do? Exactly. Well done, Savannah. So you predict the story. Okay? So the importance of pre-reading is to predict the story. And then while reading, what are the things that you do when you are reading the story? Indicate on the chat. So now, once you go over the story, what are the things that you can do to help you understand the story? I'll give you one example. You can actually highlight the words that you don't understand. Okay. So for while reading, that's when you actually trying to understand the story. So you highlight the words that you don't understand, you look them up in the dictionary and find their definition. So once you know what they mean, you'll understand the story better. And then you analyze the story paragraph by paragraph to see what each paragraph is about. And then lastly, for your post reading, that's when you summarize. You should be able to summarize the whole story and you should be able to answer questions based on the story. So, do you guys understand this part? Indicate on the chat if you understand. Okay, well done. Okay, now let's look at this slide. Okay. Now, remember on Tuesday, I was reading the story. For those of you who did not hear the entire story, um, can you guys just listen? I was reading an extract from A Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I was basically reading from page 8 up until page 12 or 14, I think. I can't remember now. Okay. And then this first question, so these questions are based on the story that I read on Tuesday. Okay, so the first question says identify and discuss the characters. Let's start with the characters. Can you guys name the characters? And for those of you who've actually read the book, can you just list the characters in the book? Okay, let's see on the chat. What is happening with my computer? Okay. Yes, so we have Greg. Okay. We have Greg. Who else? Roderick. Well done. So some of the characters. Oh, well done. And Rowley as well. I had forgotten about him. Okay. So some of the characters are Rowley, Greg, and Roderick. Okay. And now the target audience. Who do you think the book was specially written for? Do you think an 80-year-old woman would enjoy the story, or do you think grade R learners would enjoy the story? Who do you think is the target audience for this specific story? A Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Kids, okay, well done. Someone says from kids from the age 8 to 13. Well done. So it's basically written for children, okay? And obviously children who can read. So would skip grade ones. Yeah, I would say kids from grade 2 up until maybe grade 7. Yes. So that age group, because they would actually be interested in that story. Whereas I doubt that 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds would really find the story interesting. So that is the target audience for the book. And now, what is the plot? What are the main ideas, or what is the main thing which happens in the story? Yes, Letogutle says, okay. Okay, it was about the spinning with the cheese touch. I'm tired of, okay. Can someone explain? Okay. It took the raised. Yes. Yeah.
This
Mm,
the book man is about the taste touch, and in order to not get the taste touch, you must cross your fingers.
yes, you must cross your fingers like this. And then what did Greg do so that he doesn't forget to cross his fingers? What did he do?
Then he put them together. Maybe tape them together.
Yes, he taped them together. And by taping his
He
fingers crossed
failed.
like this, he
He
failed.
didn't pass. He failed his writing thinking class thing.
Well done. So by crossing his fingers like that, he actually got a bad mark for handwriting. So he did that. He didn't even mind because he says it's much better than getting the cheese touch. Okay. So the setting, where does the story take place, or when does it take place? So give me a place. Where does this whole thing of the cheese touch happen? Where? Okay, indicates on the chat. Okay, let's try Savannah.
Ma'am, the whole thing
Hello.
happens at, ma'am, it happens at school.
Well done. So the setting of the story would be the school, because that is that's where the entire incident of the cheese touch happened. It happened at school, or you can say at the basketball court. And yeah, okay. And then for you, what do you think the message of the story is? For you personally, what did you learn from the story? Okay. What did you learn from the story? What did the story teach you? You can indicate on the. Okay, someone said that Greg is a wimp. Remember, we said wimp means someone who is weak. Okay. And then someone said for them, there's no message. Okay. For me personally, I think for me, the main message was just that at school, we all have these funny little things that we have to go through. Yeah, that's basically what I learned from it. Obviously, I think the message, you will get it after reading the entire book and not just an extract. So from that extract, I just got the idea that every little child goes through their own issues or goes through these tiny situations at school. Okay. And then what type of language is used in the story? Is it formal language or informal language? Okay, indicates on the chat. Okay, someone says formal, and then another one said informal. Okay. So grade sixes, the type of language that they use in this book is actually informal, because if you have read the book, they use words such as dog, words such as a jerk, and those are not formal words. Okay, and they also use contractions, so they don't write in full. Greg will say, I've seen someone today, instead of saying, I have seen someone today. So those are two clues which tell us that it's actually informal language and not formal language. Okay, the last question before we finish off our lesson: how do you relate to the story? So think of a similar incident that happened in your life. How do you personally relate to the story? Okay, let's take one person. Raise your hand and I will unmute you. Okay, someone said they don't. I would say I relate to the story because I once went to school and we also played these games like, well, it wasn't the cheese touch, but we played a game called Mannequin where we also had to cross our fingers like that. So that's how I relate. Let me unmute Letogutle. Yes.
Okay. So there's this thing that I used to do in school when I was in grade 4. It's called
Okay.
repeat. It's called repeat. You have to
Yes.
cross your fingers. If you didn't cross your fingers, you have to repeat the thing over and over and over again until the person
Yes.
says 3 times.
Yes, I also remember playing something like that when I was in primary school. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so you would obviously relate in that way because you go through similar experiences. Okay, we've reached the end of our lesson, grade sixes. Thank you so much for participating, for answering. And once again, if you do have questions on everything that we did, you are more than welcome to send me an email, whatever the question may be. And then if you want me to look at your activity or anything of that nature, then please send me an email on the email address that I've attached on these slides. And then in our next lesson, we will focus on listening and speaking. So I will be testing your listening skills and we will be discussing as a class. I'm trying to find the right thing to read. I'm trying to find something very interesting. So I will just read an information text. I'm still trying to find that and I'll read it for you. And then you guys will obviously have to listen carefully. And then we are going to discuss what it was about and the important points. So we're going to discuss as a class. So for our next lesson, please be as participative or as interactive as you were today. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed the lesson. Just indicate on the chat if you understand or if you understood everything. Okay, thank you so much. And our lesson is finished. So thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Wash those hands, sanitize those hands, and wear your masks if you are going outside. Goodbye, grade sixes.